Welcome everyone here. It's good to see all your faces here this evening. Our first order of business, we're going to stand up and do the pledges of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 1, we're going to consider the minutes of the April 25, 2023 meeting and May 4, 2023 agenda review.
I move that those minutes be approved.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 2, we're going to consider a proclamation declaring May 14 through 2023 as National Police Week and May 15, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day. Deputy Chief Powell.
Well, as you know, I'm filling in due to Chief's death in the family, so thoughts and prayers stay with him. You got the JV tonight, sorry. A reminder, on Wednesday, May 17th, we're going to have a ceremony in front of the Law Enforcement Center to celebrate. I've heard 11 and I've heard 11:30. I'll try to get an exact time for you guys before that date. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Newton Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the City of Newton, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Newton Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service, and in doing so have established for themselves an enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens.
Therefore, I, Leroy Kane, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Newton in the state of Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 14 through 2023 as National Police Week, and call upon all citizens of the City of Newton to observe Monday, May 15 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would move that we accept that proclamation.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 3, we're going to consider a proclamation declaring the week of May 21 through 27, 2023 as Public Works Week. Suzanne.
Yes, Commissioners. I will read the proclamation. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustain and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Newton, Kansas. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, parks, cemeteries, water treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Newton, Kansas to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association and the Canadian Public Works Association.
Be it now resolved, I, Mayor Leroy Kane, do hereby designate the week May 21 through 27, 2023 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I too. I'm sorry. I was reading here. Sorry. Aye.
Okay. All right, item number 4, we're going to consider a proclamation declaring May 21 through 27, 2023 as EMS Week. Chief Roberson.
Thank you all. So May 21 through 27, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week, whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services systems consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to maintain as well as enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week.
Now therefore, I, Leroy Kane, Mayor of the City of Newton, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21 through 27 as Emergency Medical Services Week. With the theme EMS, where emergency care begins, I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities.
I would move that we receive this proclamation.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much. I would like to mention too that it was an oversight on my part. It's National Nurses Week as well, with today being Hug a Nurse Day. I don't know. It sounded good, but if anybody needs a hug, I'm a nurse.
There you go.
It's also National Teacher Appreciation Week, is my understanding as well. So,
Rain check.
Well, and in addition to all the proclamations, I want to acknowledge that a week or two ago, we had City Clerk Recognition Week, and we happen to have one of the outstanding all-stars right here in our own city, and that is Denise Dirksen, and she has 30-plus years of service as a city clerk. I may also add that she's not just a city clerk. She also does training. She helps serve the state of Kansas in multiple ways. Okay, we are going to move on to item number 5. We're going to consider a request from the Gathering to close 6th Street parking lot for their backyard pop-up church on May 28, 2023 from 8 o'clock to noon. Denise.
Yes, this is a request that the Gathering usually does a couple times a year. They're just wanting to use the alley or the parking lot behind their church for their pop-up church that day, and they have requested to close that 6th Street parking lot. Staff has reviewed this and is okay with that request.
I'll make a motion that we approve closing the 6th Street parking lot.
I will second that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 6, we're going to receive a request for snow fencing along First Street from Sand Creek to the west side of the arena for the Junior Rodeo on June 10 and 11, 2023. Denise.
Yes, the Saddle Club is doing their Junior Rodeo again. This will be June 10th and 11th, and they have requested that snow fencing be put up basically in that grassy area just right by to the drive where you can come in by the arena. And staff has reviewed this request and is okay with that also.
I move that we approve that request.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item number 7, we're going to consider an amendment to the low-interest loan with the state for the water tower project. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners. We've talked about this multiple times before, but as you know, in 2022, we started construction on the water tower on West First Street. The existing tower was constructed in 1939, and it's in need of replacement. When we started the construction, well, we went through the process of obtaining some land from BNSF, and then we started construction. The contractor preload. They went ahead and began preparations for putting in footings, and when they got into the soils, some of the soils were contaminated, and these soils had anywhere from low to high range hydrocarbon products in those, and that's considered special waste. And so we cannot just take it and dump it anywhere or use it on another project somewhere. It has to be hauled off site to an approved landfill. The state stopped the project so that they could look through how the lines were being laid and where it was going to be placed, and look at the elevations of everything that was going to be coming in on the tower. And it has been a long process working through all of that, and we are now to the point where they are ready to allow us to move forward with the project. However, the cost of the project is going to be more than the original loan because for this tower itself. We went through a lot of data and sampling and had to change the plans a bit. And then the project sat idle for about 10 months while the state was doing review. And all of the material and labor cost increases has kind of happened right around all of the COVID changes as well. And so we've had an increase and a change order for increase of $670,000 while we were sitting idle. And then there was another change order for the special waste that was an additional $900,000. And so the project cost and loan agreement needs to increase to account for these change orders. And that would make the new loan amount, and the state has approved, and you had a draft in your agenda packet, but we've received a signed version of this now. And this is at the original low interest loan rate of the 1.26% per year on this. So the total loan amount now would be the $8,347,473. And we've been building in these costs as we looked at the utility rates. So this is not going to skyrocket anything additional. This is something we knew was coming. We were just waiting on the state to approve it. So if you are agreeable, then we would ask that you would approve the loan amendment, and we also need to have an ordinance that gets approved and published that says that you have approved that. It's a requirement of the state to go along with the loan. We would, and I didn't get the ordinance request in here, but well, the ordinance is in here, but I didn't put it on the recommendation. So we will need you to approve the amendment and the ordinance that supports that.
And maybe we could do that in 2 separate motions if you're agreeable. We'll have an ordinance number. We've just changed the signature block to put in the mayor's name and the clerk's name, but the substance of the ordinance is the same. It's been in your agenda packet.
And once this, if we are able to move forward with this, the contractor has scheduled it back into their schedule because they schedule things out, and a year to 2 in advance. They're able to come back in September of this year to start on the project. And remember, we are replacing the existing tank with 2 tanks so that we'll be able to take one down for maintenance and still have water supply in the system, would still be working that way. Any questions?
So what is the first motion specifically?
To approve the agreement.
To approve the amount, okay. I would move that we approve the agreement.
The amendment to the agreement, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. And now for the
The ordinance number would be 5122-23.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 5122-23.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Now we're going to, item number 8, we're going to receive information regarding the IdeaTek fiber project. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners, this item is really just for information. IdeaTek met with staff actually last week, and they are expanding their fiber network in Newton. This is fiber to the home and business. It's a large project. It's scheduled to take about a year. Most of the main lines or backbones would be in the public right-of-way. Some of those will be bored, some of them will be open cut. They are planning to start their work just in the 12th and Main area, to the west of 12th and Main area. This is going to require a lot of locates that have to be done for city facilities. All of our water lines and sewer lines will have a lot of locates that are going out, so it means there's going to be flags, there's going to be paint that's going to be in people's yards as we are marking lines, and not just us, but all public utilities that are in the public right-of-way are going to be marked. So the AT&Ts, the gas lines, everybody. And so this is going to impact people's yards. It's going to impact the public right-of-way. And any of the work that they do in the right-of-way, the cost for replacing either the pavement or the turf, whatever they damage, is their cost. That would be IdeaTek's cost. And for street pavement, our crews are the ones that do the replacement. They are planning to use subcontractors to do the installation. The first sub that they are planning to use is TMD. They're anticipating running anywhere from 1,000 to 3,500 feet per week. And they are planning to mail out. I put a copy of the letter in the packet for you so you would know in case you get questions. And they will be doing door hangers as well. They're expecting that work would begin in 2 to 3 weeks. You can kind of see their quickie map that they have in here that I included. And of course, they're going to give everybody notice, and they have to pull permits with us as well. I've also given the gentleman's name. If individuals have complaints, their community and public relations manager, James, would be available to answer those questions. They are expecting that they're going to serve over 8,500 customers in this project. This is really just for your information, for the public's information, and of course, they may change their start date and all of that as we move forward, but this is the best information that we have today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, item number 9 is the 2023 C-CLIP K-15 reconstruction project, and back to you.
Yes, I don't know if we have a map for this or not. If you recall, last year, we had 2022 C-CLIP funds through the state of Kansas, and we were able to get a portion of the K-15 highway repaired with a mill and overlay project and some full-depth pavement, and that's shown on the map that you had in the packet, and that's shown on the screen. That's kind of an orange color. And this year, we were hoping we'd get a little bit farther than we did, but the funds didn't allow for it when we took bids, and so we are planning to put this project out to bid. Once we have state approval, we can move forward on this. And the limits that we're trying to address this year would be from the BNSF tracks downtown north to 11th Street. And then we'll skip over the 12th Street intersection and go from 13th Street all the way north to the city limits. And we will get 12th Street from Main Street west to the Sand Creek Bridge, just a little piece there kind of by Wendy's and the banks. And we've put all of that into this year's project, remembering that this is a really busy piece of highway, and almost everybody in the community, it touches them at some point during their week. And so we're mindful of that. We are planning to bid the project so that the contractor would have less days than we allowed last year. That's assuming that the costs come in so that we can afford it. So we will have to evaluate that as we are reviewing bids. But the intent is they would start on the inside lanes and get all of that work done and then move to the outside lanes. And we are wanting them to get the improvements done on the piece through the downtown area and up around the 12th Street area before school starts, because that intersection of 12th Street is very busy. Once we have approval to go out to bid, we'll take the project out to bid, and once we know who the contractor is, then we will be providing information to all of the properties that are along the route, and of course, doing press releases that let everyone know what the schedule will be for the work. We also have liquidated damages in the project so that if the contractor does not perform according to the bid documents, then we charge them for those liquidated damages. That typically helps if they extend the time that we have allowed for the project. The cost pays for the inspection because we need somebody inspecting this full time on this project. And part of the reason that these projects are a little bit difficult to determine exactly how long it's going to take is because once we do the milling on these, remember this highway has been in place for many, many years, and once we peel back the asphalt, sometimes we can see a little bit more than you can just see from the surface. And full depth repairs we know are going to be needed in some places. So after they do the milling, then they go in and they cut out certain areas that we have on the plans, but we may see an extended area that needs to be taken care of because we want to take care of the base while we have the roadway open. But we will expect the contractor to be swift as they move forward with the project. Once this project, if you approve the project, we would plan to move forward with bids here very soon. We also have, and it's shown on the map, an annual overlay project. Every year we do overlay in the same area where we're doing our slurry seal, our in-house slurry seal program, and the area in blue, which is on West 12th Street there, Kelly's showing you with the cursor, it would be from Sand Creek West. And then the rest of the project is on North Kansas Avenue from 12th Street north up to basically Sand Creek. That's the city limit line. So that's going to be a different contractor. All of these contractors, we're going to need them to coordinate with us so that we make sure that we can keep people moving through the area. There's going to be a lot of cones and barrels. We're hoping that it is a short-lived, and hopefully everybody can endure with us. The intent would be to not do the North Kansas piece until after closer to the end of June, early July, when most of the ball play has slowed down just a bit. But we have to do it when the weather's warm. So we will be moving forward with all of these. And if you approve us to move forward with this, I'm asking you to approve the plans and specifications subject to the KDOT approval and the funding resolution. We call it a C-CLIP project because that is the pot of funds that we are tapping into with the state. The estimated cost of the design, the construction, the inspection, and all of the testing is basically $1,542,000. The state will contribute $300,000 towards that, so the city's paying the difference. Do you have any questions for me?
And this is part of the CIP, but it was broken up across 2 years because the previous funding didn't.
Yes, all of this, K-15 from US 50 all the way to the North City limits was all in the CIP. We broke it up so that we could try and access the state funds in multiple years. And the piece that's left, I'm glad you asked this question, because the piece that's left in the middle, that 12th Street piece that we'll be doing next year, that's shown in green on the map, that piece is going to be a full reconstruct where we are going to have to tear everything out and put it back. That is a different type of funding, and we're hoping to get a little bit more funds from the state. In order to do that, staff is meeting with KDOT here in the next week to review our request for the 2024 funds.
Okay.
So we first want to receive the plans, correct?
I move that we receive the plans and specifications for the K-15 reconstruction project.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is a resolution.
Yes, that number is I-1207.
I'll make a motion that we approve I-1207.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Passes. And then the last one, we're going to set the date and time to receive the bids.
Yeah, on this one, what I'd like you to do is to just approve staff to set the time once we have the state approvals.
I will make a motion for that, staff to set that time.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that
Thank you.
passes. Item number 10, we're going to receive information regarding allowing roosters and potbelly pigs within the city limits. Chris?
Yeah, I can tee that up. At your previous meeting, the city commission received requests to allow both pigs and roosters within the city limits. You instructed staff to report back. This is that report. It's all in the memo, but the current law, of course, is no roosters or pigs allowed within the city. Chickens are allowed with some pretty comprehensive regulations, including registration and the keeping of them and everything else. We've also included some background information from other cities in Kansas just for your reference. At the conclusion of the memo is the staff recommendation, and that's to make no amendments to allow either roosters or pigs. All of the standard carve-outs remain in terms of educational institutions and everything else. Although we are working on some changes to the animal control ordinance, we wouldn't suggest the allowance of either of those. The reasoning set forth in the memo, specific to roosters, there are obviously a number of noise complaint issues involving the keeping of roosters within the city. For pigs, with it being livestock, the city simply, animal control is not equipped to handle, the keeping of pigs in terms of, we have an agreement with Caring Hands, which is proper for both dogs and cats. That wouldn't apply to pigs. Also, just if there is any sort of confiscation or taking them in, city staff just they're not equipped to have, the resources to do that. I would stand for any questions. I know city staff would, law enforcement can. The city commission is not required to hear comment, but I think the traditional practice of allowing comment while an agenda item up is probably a good one in this regard, if you do want to hear public comment on it. I would stand for any questions, though, before you move forward. Kelly might have something.
And I may, if I may, Chris, excuse me, Chris alluded to it, but for clarification, we've had multiple comments and questions come in about the differentiation between the animal control ordinance regarding pigs or roosters or goats or monkeys, livestock in general, versus what would be an allowance as far as like the Rural Life Education Center. That has been a hot topic of conversation recently. And we've tried to clarify that in your memo in writing, but also just to have it out there, that licensure is a completely separate topic and law enforcement issue and licensure issue through USDA, through KDHE, and through through local zoning regulations versus this. This is specific to an individual who would have these animals at their personal residence versus a school. Just wanted to throw that out there because we've had multiple questions about how this overlaps with that, since it's also been a recent hot topic of conversation. And again, we would be happy to answer questions. Chief Powell would be happy to answer questions from law enforcement side if you have those.
What kind of things have you been running into, Chief Powell, Deputy Chief Powell, with regard to these issues in the recent weeks?
Well, it's kind of like sorry, can you hear me okay?
We should get him a microphone just in case, because it does better on the recording and the live broadcast. So.
The consistent thing we've had is for everybody that wants a pig or a goat or whatever they want, there's been 2 or 3 neighbors that don't. All of our complaints and our knowledge of where they are based on complaints from other people. So we're kind of neutral as far as we'll enforce whatever ordinance is on the books, but as Chris pointed out, a lot of farmers aren't just willing to take livestock in that they don't know where they came from or diseases and things like that. We get a lot of rooster complaints about the noise, so we're kind of just waiting to hear what you guys decide, and we will enforce whatever you guys decide. I would suggest if we're going to make a pig or any kind of livestock ordinance that we need to give us some time to figure out what we're going to do in the case of a confiscation, or what are we supposed to do with one if one gets out, because our animal control vehicle is not equipped to haul a pig. we recently did have a goat get out from the county that came into town and tried to break into a lady's house because he saw himself in the sliding window. We had to pick him up and put him in the back of a patrol car, but humans sit back there, and so that's not a great idea. We have no way to transport livestock in any of the vehicles we own. So that's some of the problems we run into. Does that answer your question?
Have you run into any other animals requests since we've been talking about this? I know a few years back you mentioned that there was something about spider monkeys, and then there was another animal. So has that kind of revived itself?
I would defer to Deputy Chief, but as far as administration goes, yes, we have received requests in the last couple of weeks for spider monkeys, pygmy goats, llamas,
I'm not familiar
additional
with that.
bees, something like that.
The fear is that if we're going to have to be very specific as to what we're allowing or not allowing, because if you're not, then what isn't off the table?
And there is, for clarification, I've had a couple of questions about horses. And there is a specific carve out for horses, but you have to have a certain amount of property. I think it's 2 acres for 1 horse and then an additional acre or 2 for each additional horse with a maximum of 2 within the city limit, 2 animals, that is. That is a specific question we've received the last couple of years.
Yeah, with the pig debate, it's kind of opened the floodgates for everybody wanting all different kinds of livestock, and we're just telling them that it's against the ordinance.
Well, maybe at this time we can open it up to whoever wants to speak about pigs or roosters. You may come up to the podium and state your name and address.
All right, I'll just go. I have goats. Okay. That's no secret. The animal control stopped by.
What was your name?
My name is Ben McCormick.
Okay. And your address?
110 Southeast 12th.
Okay.
And I recently received a visit from a very nice animal control officer. She'd mentioned that she was basically just reinforcing, in light of the pig issue, the code regarding animals. And so I guess my address must have popped up or something. But I would like to introduce potentially some kind of ordinance change in order to allow for animals such as goats, potbelly pigs, whatnot. I think it's definitely possible to have, as he was saying, comprehensive statutes regarding the allowance with restrictions and permits, much in the same way that having chickens is already governed with permits. So if you'd like, I've got a handout I could give you with some information that I put together on what I think could work for everybody. Of course, open to discussion and changes on it. But if anyone else wants to hop in here, feel free.
My name's Jessica Grigorieva, and then my address is 704 Northridge here in Newton. In regards to the potbelly pigs, I just wanted to reiterate that they're not livestock. They're not for food. They don't get to be the size that a traditional hog does, but they're not considered livestock. So I think that that's important to have that difference in that. Second, I've been in contact with someone at Caring Hands in regards to placement. If for some reason a potbelly pig needs to be surrendered. And they have been speaking with farmers, a specific farm, they didn't tell me who. They've been speaking with them to see if they can come up with an agreement in case a potbelly pig needed to be surrendered or transported for some reason. And then lastly, in regards to the animal control vehicle lift, not being able to lift more than 150 pounds, again, there's dogs bigger than that. So what are we doing for those dogs that are more than 150 pounds? How are we getting those into the truck? So most, potbelly pigs, they're not bigger than 150 pounds. And then in regards to transporting them, I have questions about that because our potbelly pig, she rides in the van like a dog, so I don't understand how come that potbelly pig couldn't just be in the back of the truck like a dog does for the animal control office. I understand that comes with more ordinance changes. I'm super open to helping, in regards to helping find places, in whatever needs to be done to help. I understand it's, would be delaying the answer today, but I think the community, in regards to when I've spoken to people, they're really open to having potbelly pigs in town. There wasn't a specific complaint against our pig, just the fact that we had the pig, so it's not that she was running a nuisance, that she was running at large. It's just the fact that there was one, not for smell or anything else, just that that neighbor saw the pig. So I just hope that you take those things into consideration when you think about it. So thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Courtney Napier. My address is 2004 Depot here in Newton, Kansas. And I would just want to comment from a nursing perspective. I'm a registered nurse, a certified pediatric emergency nurse, and dealt with dog bites and injuries from dogs, even child deaths related to dogs, and saw the violent nature that could occur. I know, dog is a man's best friend, and they also have a lot of benefits. But when considering a nonviolent animal like a mini potbelly pig, I would agree with Ms. Grigorieva that it's not considered livestock and that it wouldn't be any larger than a dog. And I just think if we are going to allow these animals that, cause damage to our children and injuries and even deaths, that it would be reasonable and fair to allow a mini potbelly pig. And I don't think cities like Wichita or Park City that have allowed the mini potbelly pigs have had this issue with pigs being surrendered. I'm not sure if you have data on that there have been a lot of pigs. Are they having an issue with that?
I haven't heard any specific. We're just planning for if they become legal, what do we do with them if there is a problem?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think I've heard, I don't know specifics, but there are pig sanctuaries even for mini potbelly pigs in the area. So I don't know if that's something that you could look into, but I'm sure that, we have put money and resources toward cats and dogs that have been abandoned. And I just don't foresee that being a problem with mini potbelly pigs, especially if you're requiring registration, vaccinations. I don't know. Do you think that you're just going to have a lot of people going to a pet store to get a mini potbelly pig? I don't really know even where you would get one.
Well, I don't know the answer to where you would obtain it.
Right, yeah.
Or what to do with it. The only disagreement I'll have is the state ag department has said potbelly pigs are livestock, and so that there lies the problem. We can't take livestock to a humane society because they cannot take them. So I don't want to get in the weeds about the definition of livestock, but the state has defined potbelly pigs as livestock. Therefore, there's only certain places we can take livestock if there were ever to be a problem.
Okay, and that would be a mini potbelly pig, which would be from the Vietnamese origin?
Yeah, pigs in general, yeah.
Yeah, I've just not seen them lumped all together like that, but maybe that's true.
And that's the state ag department has said that.
Okay. And then my final just request would be, I don't think it would be fair to lump all these animals into one ordinance or just one shutdown of any changes to animal ordinances, as far as, just because you've gotten a request from a spider monkey, you think, well, this is out of hand, so we're not going to consider any animals, or to say roosters are allowed, so no to potbelly pigs, no to roosters. I think it would be reasonable and fair to consider each individual animal and even look at what our neighboring cities have done, which would be Park City and Wichita, and to allow our citizens to have the same rights and freedoms as those neighboring cities do. Thank you.
Well, why don't we return to our discussion about this
Chris, Wichita, do they allow, I thought I read in here, they do not allow pigs or potbelly pigs.
I believe they do. I'd have to check the materials.
Okay.
They have to be, I think if I read this correctly, if it was Wichita, under 80 pounds, spayed, vaccinated, annual exams, and all of that.
I believe that's right.
Page 43.
I'd have to go back and find, I mean, there's 57 pages of.
Yeah,
stuff.
sorry, we tried to give you the materials. so
I
you could-
appreciate it.
Yeah,
I just
for
can't remember
sure.
exactly what page it was on, but
And that was just a survey, so you had a general idea of what other communities did.
And that's
Okay.
the same with Lawrence. Lawrence has basically the same with regard to them, less than 80 pounds.
yeah, it's purebred, it's less than 80 pounds. Has to be spayed and neutered.
Can I say one other thing in regards to weight for pigs?
If you come up to the microphone, yeah, just for, it's being broadcasted.
In regards to weight limits with mini potbelly pigs, it is very difficult to know how big. It's not standard like a dog, like a Chihuahua is going to be 2 pounds. It's very difficult to know when you get a Vietnamese potbelly pig. The upper limits is obviously like 100 to 150 pounds, but it's difficult to know that, yes, this pig will be 79 pounds. So I would be mindful of that when considering that, because then you are going to have pigs that are going to have to be surrendered because they're 85 pounds. So that's.
Sure.
And I think staff would agree with that sentiment, that if you do have that weight item, we're in, the business of weighing a pig that's 79 or 81 pounds, and that could be problematic in of itself. So obviously a number of different ways to do it. There's no perfect ordinance out there. You get to make a policy call on it.
I think my big concern was, as I've been researching this and reading through this, is the difference between ESAs, which is the emotional support animals, therapy dogs, which are typically more for groups, and then service dogs. And I've read several articles, emotional support animals, lend support in the form of affection, relief, or stress, or anxiety, companionship, nearly any type of an animal, depending on the owner's needs. So that's where my concern was, what if somebody, well, that's why I asked about the spider monkeys, because I know that was mentioned before. What if somebody comes and says that spider monkey is...
So for emotional support animals with the Fair Housing Act, it's under federal law to have reasonable accommodation for a pet. But if you have pets that are considered not ordinary, then there needs to be a reason for that. With Owen, he has allergies, and so that's where a dog wasn't. So he has, that's the reason for the not ordinary. So there is kind of a structure in place for...
So are you looking at the city as to be responsible for that? When I read that, I understood that to be landlords or...
Yeah. The legal opinion from my office is in the agenda packet.
Yeah.
You do have to recognize service animals, that there would not be a requirement to allow pot-bellied pigs under an emotional
Well,
support animal
yes,
care.
service
Service animals are
animals
different.
who are typically, I mean, they've had very strict training, certifications are necessary. They enable the owners to do what is necessary, mobility challenges, diabetes, a number of issues. So they require strict training, certification. The emotional support animals, there is really no, they do have to have a diagnosis. No, I'm sorry. The person that needs the emotional support has to have a diagnosis, typically for mental, emotional, psychological conditions, requiring a doctor's recommendation. It seems so wide.
Yeah, it is very, it's a very broad subject in regards to emotional support animals. Owen specifically has letters from his medical doctor and therapist. Goodness, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, he does have documentation from that. He does, she's not trained to watch for a seizure or something.
So is this the only thing with regard to your son's health that he is relying on? Or is this in addition to medications? And I ask that because
Oh,
this has
yeah,
become
yeah,
a very
sure.
public issue.
Absolutely. I think what I did want to say is as a nurse practitioner, I do know that these letters are not something that I would give out lightly. So, that's not something that anybody that comes in, I'm going to be writing letters, And I think that other healthcare professionals, they agree with that. You're not going to write a handicap sticker for every person that comes in just because they don't want to. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. To protect somewhat Owen's, HIPAA, but yeah, he does go to therapy. He has medications. We do lots of things to help protect his mental health in conjunction with a pig that he's bonded with that helps him with that.
I appreciate the HIPAA, but because we're in a public situation, I think that
Absolutely.
helps us to know what you have going on, if it's just the pig or if it's...
It's been a process over several years that we've been working with him to get where he needed to be mental health wise. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
If I may, I would agree with her that if you're looking at changing the ordinance, that's putting us in an awkward position that we're not really comfortable asking about HIPAA protected things and does this doctor count and not what doctor counts and what they say, and we're not comfortable on the enforcement side of it getting into that because it's just, frankly none of our business with the medical issues. Thank you.
I'll take a minute and, go ahead if you want to come up.
I can repeat my name if needed, but Courtney Napier. I did a quick Google search of Park City's pig ordinance, and it defines a potbelly pig, and it shall mean a domesticated miniature Vietnamese, Chinese, or Asian pot-bellied or pot-belly pig not exceeding 150 pounds in weight and 24 inches in height, measured at the shoulder. So that's our closest neighboring city, which is 150 pounds. So if you're looking at specifics there.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Evans, 329 Sutton. I first heard of the situation when KWCH or KSN did the news report. Recently, I have become quite fascinated with potbelly pigs because of it. I didn't realize how uninformed I was. In the Newton Code, I think it's 3-105, which defines domestication or domestic. It states that it's for animals that are bred to live in a household as a pet. Potbelly pigs are, such as the one that this lady has, they are bred to live in homes with people, with humans. They have physical differences between even though they're part of the swine family, it's different than the kinds that you find on the farm. The potbelly pigs have smaller ears, they have a straight tail, they have shorter legs, and they have a little bit of a slope in the back of their back. So they are significantly different. So, we have like coyotes and wolves, black labs, and poodles are all canines. But black labs and poodles are domesticated. The same with felines, cougars, panthers, calicos, and ragdolls. The last two are domesticated. Even though that the potbelly pig is part of the swine family, it is designated and defined as being a domesticated animal, and which would fall under the code of being domesticated under the Code of Newton. I've had some conversations with Jessica recently. Newton is growing. There's new businesses coming into town. There's new housing coming up. So this is an opportunity for Newton to be open-minded and willing to look. The information that I have found, I did not know that there is a National American Potbelly Pig Association that is a registered 501k nonprofit organization, along with another one that was in Texas. There is a whole bunch of information on these websites. The potbelly pig is was listed as an emotional support animal. I did look up the definition of livestock under the state of Kansas, and horses fall under that. But you had mentioned that there are some exceptions to that. So at minimum, I think there's a lot of information that we can learn about the potbelly pigs before a definite decision is made, if we are given the opportunity to present that. I am willing to help, Jessica. Like I said, I have just been fascinated with the information that about potbelly pigs. I have allergies myself. I have 2 dogs. I have a Belgian Malinois and a black lab, and I'm sure that her potbelly pig doesn't shed as much as my dogs. So I would just like to request that the commission take the opportunity to be willing to expand and learn about the potbelly pig until a definite decision is made. You know, it's just the right thing to do. Like I said, Newton is growing, and certainly want to attract families and be open-minded and willing. And I thank you for the opportunity to let me speak.
Thank you.
I'll take a minute. I've thought more about potbelly pigs in the past 2 weeks than I have my whole life. And I've read more about potbelly pigs than I probably will the remainder of my life. But I think tonight, we sort of have 3 different issues. I think we have roosters, I think we have goats, and I think we have a pig. I know that I'm not in favor of changing an ordinance that would allow generalized livestock, if that's the term we're using to define that this evening. I'm not in favor of that in the city at all. I think we're fortunate to live in somewhat of a rural community where there is access, or there are locations outside of the city should someone want to keep certain animals or livestock, if you want to call it that would allow them to do so. What I find difficult specifically to the pig is that unfortunately it's gotten lumped into the same category as so many other animals this evening. I would not want someone with roosters living next to me at all, and I'm thankful for that I don't have to. Our neighborhood doesn't allow chickens, period, but I would not want to. I don't know how I feel about a pig. I've never lived next door to one. I just know that roosters are loud, and some of the comments that we've received just point out the fact that there are people that work at home, there are people that are, you know, maybe work a 3rd shift, they're sleeping in the morning time, and we can't control a rooster's crow, whether it's at 5, 7, 9, whatever. I understand there's accommodations that could be made, but that's very difficult to make everyone do that. So I'm saying tonight, I'm definitely not on board with roosters or even with goats of changing any ordinances to allow that. And if I was forced to make a decision tonight, which perhaps that's where we'll end up, is that I don't think that I would be comfortable enough even tonight saying absolute allowed for any emotional service animal, because I also think then we open up a very difficult box to try to control and understand what's happening. To you guys, I mean, I have 2 kids at home that have full-blown autism, and we've struggled with some emotional health and behavioral health, and we've had dogs, but they haven't brought any support. We've never tried an animal or anything like that. We've used medication, and so I sympathize and I understand, and we've even come in and seen you at Express Wellness, and you've treated my family well when we've been there. So it's difficult for me to just immediately look at Owen in the face and say, sorry, you know, you can't do this. But I also know too that the ordinance has been, and whether it was misunderstood or however we ended up at this point, is that they're not allowed. There's an allowable list of animals, and I struggle with saying in this situation, we're gonna allow this, and the person that doesn't want them, whether I agree with them or not, sorry, but your voice doesn't matter. It doesn't really care what you think. I know it's not really practical, and most of us won't do it. We won't look at every single ordinance a city offers before we move there. But if there are things that are important to us, we may look at those and say, okay, I want to move to this city because they allow X, Y, Z. Now, I'm not suggesting you move. That's not what I'm just saying. That I would imagine there's somebody in town that thought the animal list is small, so maybe in Newton is a place. Maybe they hate animals. I don't see anybody could, but maybe they do. I struggle tonight just changing it for that reason. I also think it's I think it's impossible for us to say, in this particular situation, Owen gets to keep his pig, but no one else, gets an emotional support animal, because I'm afraid then that it becomes, well, you guys are being discriminatory toward me and my illness or me and my issue. And none of us at the city are qualified to try to say this person can have one. I know we can get doctor's notes and all those things, but what do we do when other animals that you would definitely not want living next to you become someone's emotional support animal? And so it's difficult for me, I find it very difficult to try to say, my father heart, some would say I'm a bad dad because I don't like telling my kids no. I like to see them smile and be happy as much as possible, but I struggle with even saying no to this situation. And I've thought a lot about it and prayed about it and tried to come up with the most reasonable solution. I don't know that, I don't know where, we haven't voted on it. We haven't really discussed it other than we've received this information on it in our packets. I'm hopeful that if tonight there's not a change that's done, that you guys can find someone for Owen to go live, or not Owen, I'm sorry, Ginger, that Ginger can go live with temporarily or permanently, that is still accessible to Owen and being able to visit. That seems like it's a possibility for me, or for our community, for that to happen. I know when we ran and when we get elected, I hate having to make decisions on this kind of stuff. But it falls with us. I would rather hear how a project, I'd rather make a decision on a project that's costing $1.5 million more because of groundwater or ground contamination than having to tell a family, sorry, you can't do this anymore. It's not real difficult for me to say, sorry, this is the ordinance, we can't change it for that. But in this particular situation, my heart hurts for you guys, it really does, as a dad, and sitting here and watching Owen tonight and the pig on the, not the actual pig for those that are home, but cardboard picture of the pig. But I find it, I don't know how we could ever, I don't know as a city, I don't know that we're qualified and we're not staffed to try to allow certain animals. And I know that for the police, it's unfair for them to say, well, you guys have to use discretion. I can think back on a lot of things we've talked about. And one of the things that I've never liked for us to even think about or be willing to do is to say, we're not going to really make a decision. We're going to allow you guys to use discretion. That's not fair to them either. It's just a difficult position for us. But I think tonight that it's, as difficult as it is, I don't know that I'm willing, and I don't think we can. I don't think we can look at you guys and say, hey, the Gregoria family gets to keep their pig, but nobody else does. I just don't think we can do that. That's not fair to the community. It's not fair to the people that we represent. And so I know that at least this evening, I'm not willing to change it as difficult as that is to say.
I will offer, Clint, you very well put. I thank you for that. It is tough, and I would agree with you. I would rather make the decisions that involve $1 million, because when you're dealing with somebody's emotions and that, I've had a family member very dear to me that I'm thankful that has had the help that he needed. And so, and my apologies to you if there's any offense in you believe your HIPAA privacy rights have been violated. That was not my intention. It was helpful to me to understand that it wasn't just the pig, because that's really all I have drawn from it. And I'm thankful that we have the kind of help that we can get today for those things, and I hope that that help continues for Owen. My concern, as I said earlier, with emotional support animals is the opening of a, here comes something else. And then I think about the people that have said, they don't want that. Their considerations, their concerns are just as important. I just think in down the road, it opens up the opportunity for others to come with whatever animal it might be that will help them feel better. And then we will have to argue for or against if we have agreed to allow a potbelly pig then we'll find there'll be other things. We've dealt with some of these things in the past few years, just where we have to really measure and think about what we're allowing, not only for now, but how it impacts the future. It is a hard decision, very hard. It's people's lives, and we understand that. I'm personally not in favor of changing an ordinance and then having to deal with this again down the road for something else. Another animal, somebody else with another animal, then pretty soon. And we don't know what that animal could be, but it could be something that really stirs up some problems for neighbors. We don't know. I just would rather avoid that. I appreciate your persistence and what you believe in. I think that's been very commendable. But I'm not in favor of changing an ordinance as it is.
I am pretty much agreement with both Commissioner McBroom and Commissioner Valentine. I've heard from a lot of people that were pro-Ginger and Owen and wanting to make sure that we did do some sort of a carve-out to allow that to happen. I heard from some, I was amazed about how many people I heard from that weren't even part of this community. So when I pushed back to try and find out who I was speaking with and everything, it was kind of interesting that once you peeled that onion and said, well, what if it was your neighbor? And then it started to get a little washy, and that's when it starts to kind of come into a property rights situation and a quality of life that, you know, it's okay if it's on the other side of town, but if it's my neighbor, then it's not so good. And I don't like to manage by exception, and I agree with my fellow commissioners that the big number problems are the easy problems. When you put faces to problems, it becomes a little bit difficult, but I'm not in favor for managing by exception and then causing a problem down the road that we have to deal with further and possibly even be in a situation where people had then gone out and done something that then we have to unwind, and that just really makes for a bad situation. So that's kind of where I stand.
I appreciate all three of you articulating how you did. I mean, I've been up here for 10 years now, and I don't think that anybody could say that the five of us, I know Commissioner Cry's gone tonight, but the five of us couldn't care more than we do about all of our citizens and every area of your life. And I commend you for how you have, obviously Ginger means a lot to your family and to Owen, and that you have rallied your friends all over the place that have come to your aid and defense and feel that, because, you know, all kinds of families have things that are valuable in their home that you know, mean a lot to their heart and help the quality of their life. So I really commend that. I think, and Brenda, I appreciate your words about being open-minded, and we are growing. Newton is growing. We do have new people moving in. I think for me at this time, we need to stay the course and not make any changes. But I do think we need to think about it going forward of, you know, is there a way to do this and not make special carve-outs just for one kind of an animal? I don't know what that way would be, but I think for tonight, I mean, it sounds like that it's not going to do any good to move forward with making any changes. So I think.
Okay, I'm going to say, I want to add one
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
I would assume that reasonable accommodations will be made for the rehoming of any animals that, I mean, we've kind of talked about that from the beginning, and that's been, people aren't going to wake up tomorrow morning to.
No, we have no intention of coming and seizing animals tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Our animal control officer, I believe, has been working with everybody on, the first step would be a citation for having an animal, and then there would be then a court date in the future, and then a judge would have to order the removal of the animal. We're not gonna put our SWAT gear on and steal pigs in the middle of the night or do first thing in the morning. We're going to work with them to a reasonable amount of time. If we know they're working on it and trying, we will work with them to do that.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remove any doubts or fears that may be in people's minds as they leave here this evening.
Well, as it says,
Sure. Well, let Deputy Chief Powell finish what he was saying first.
that's part of the problem is we don't know how we're going to transport them, we're going to transport them to at this point.
Yeah.
So we would like the owners to find reasonable accommodations, and we'll work with them to do that and give them the time they need to do that.
And I would say, too, the prosecutor's office would be in the same boat in terms of we would see it as a code enforcement issue where we're looking for compliance. We're not looking for necessarily that conviction. If someone had an animal that wasn't allowed, they've made reasonable efforts to do it. Obviously, going to work with that person.
Sure. Thank you.
And I assume that we're also, in that same vein, talking about roosters, because I know I've heard lots of complaints about those roosters crowing, that you're going to work with the owners of said roosters.
We always try on every
get
case
them
that we can
removed.
to work with them.
And-
Absolutely. Yep,
okay.
absolutely. Compliance is the number one objective on this.
I agree 100% with Chris. We just want compliance and them to find a home for the animal instead of having to do it. That would be the best option for us as well as the owners.
Right. Okay.
I think she had something she wanted to add to this.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because I actually had the animal control officer show up to my workplace after we had talked that we would wait to see what the decision was, and gave me a citation and a court date, which is also during my work hours, and I'm the provider for the home. So that was kind of embarrassing, right, to have her show up to my workplace and have everyone question what was going on, as well as now I have to miss work to go to a court date and possibly pay a fine or whatever that looks like. I don't know. So I don't know what, if anything could do with that. And then you also mentioned earlier about like noise of roosters, but like we talked about, there's a noise ordinance in the city. And the rooster, you said you can't control that, but that can be followed just by covering them with a sheet, and they wake up when you wake them up. Showbirds, it's not a, it's a showbird, it's a breeded for shows. They're trainable. It's not one that you can't control, like you had mentioned as well. But like I said, if we do need to be compliant and get rid of it, we had talked to animal control that we were okay with that. We just would like to see what happened. And then the next thing I know, she had showed up to my work.
And I'll just comment on that from a staff perspective. Obviously, the city's getting a number of complaints on those. With the complaint process and the way it is with court, that's set out a ways. If the commission were to allow roosters, changes could be made on that. But to get that rolling, there were citations that were issued in terms of roosters. It's been on the books that they're not allowed. So just a clarification, that's not a confiscation. That's simply to notice it up for a future appearance. That's all. Thanks.
I may address that. My name is Harold Shorn. I live at 220 East 9th. And I don't be the bad guy here, but I've been putting up with this rooster since the end of March. It crows all day. I think they make some efforts to make it quiet, but it crows all day. I work at home. I have a stressful job of doing child support enforcement, so I have no relief from the crowing. And it crows from 5 in the morning till about dusk. And it's been going on every day since the end of March. I filed a complaint on April 3rd, and I'm still waiting for some action. At one time, he offered whatever transportation costs to transport the rooster somewhere else. But I'm tired of waiting, commissioners. I've been a lifetime citizen. I don't want to be like this to my neighbors, but I feel they've been unfair to me, and I've been dealing with the rooster crowing for over 30 days. And I would like an immediate compensation of it, or taking some action immediately for some relief that I have to face every day. Thank you.
And just to my point, the process is there. If there's a decision to not allow it, there's due process and rights, and we'll work with them to find it. I can't promise any sort of immediate action on that. It's going through the system.
Well, I think it's obvious we're not making any changes tonight, so. Okay. Let's move on to item number 11, budget information. Donna is not here.
She is not, yeah, no action necessary on this. This is just a follow-up. As you all have done the last couple of years, we've had some half-day budget work sessions where departments would come and present to you on strategic goals for the department and how that aligns with the cost of doing business for each individual department or jurisdiction area. And then also just some information for you on how personnel is going, number of employees, those kinds of costs year over year. And also just kind of annual report kind of things. So those are in your packet. Again, no action necessary. We will be conducting more formal budget work sessions specific to the city's general fund. In the coming weeks, we will not receive information from the county as far as total assessed valuation until middle of June-ish, so that those work sessions will be probably second, third, fourth week of June-ish timeframe. So if you have questions, as always, please reach out to the department heads or to Ms. Donna or to myself or Chris or whomever, and we'd be happy to get answers for you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, if you would, before you get to citizens' comments, I do have a new agenda item that I'd ask you to raise. It's a resolution, if I could just tee it up for the public. It's a resolution that I provided to you. It authorizes the city's purchase of a facility on East 12th Street. That's 1020 East 12th. As you recall, the City Commission approved an agreement back in the spring of 2021, which gave the city the option to purchase this facility for a purchase price of $403,000. This was part of, tied into an improvement project for a new KDOT facility in which the $403,000 would be provided as a credit. They would pay the remaining of the costs of the improvement. So city staff supports going forward with the purchase. It's already been outlined in the agreement. Just as part of the closing process, we just need this authorization, and that's what that resolution does, which says the green light for the city to go forward with the acquisition. We're looking to close in mid-May. I would stand for any questions. Suzanne, Kelly, do you have any insight on that?
And this will be the new home for the parks staff. They're currently, you may recall, they've been in a rental facility for a number of years. Our lease has been up for a number of years. And this was a great, basically, kind of swap trade for, KDOT needed a new facility closer to Highway 50 in the interchange. They are building that, and then in exchange, we are getting this facility.
And the agreement that you signed previously, we improved the roadway and had a water line extension that they said they would pay, they had to pay the cost for because they were the developer. But we have taken that on in exchange for the building. Basically, that's.
Yep. And we'll be making some improvements to the building. Obviously,
Yes.
we needed to. And this, recall, this is much less expensive than our previous option, which was to build the new parks facility, and the dirt work was
The cost of
almost
the
$2 million
building was
just for the dirt
over
work. So.
$4 million.
Yeah.
And
So this is
significantly
great.
less.
This
But
is a great opportunity.
we are going to have to do some improvements to it, and we're working towards that now.
If you're on board with that, Denise would give you a resolution number and go.
I need you to make a motion, though, to take up
Take it
that
up,
as
new
a
item.
new business item, please.
I move that we take this up as a new business item.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, that resolution number would be G1308.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution G1308.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is passed. Next up, we have Citizens Forum, and we have Philip Glass is first up on the list.
Hello, Commissioners and fellow citizens. My main thing I'll talk about was the flag. The past 2 years, my family and other friends are buried at Rest Lawn Gardens. The past 2 years, Memorial Weekend, there's never been a flag on that pole. And I'm just kind of curious why there's never been a flag put on that pole for Memorial Weekend. It is at Greenwood and other private church cemeteries, but there's never been one on that one for the past 2 years. And I just want to know, who do we get to put a flag up there on Memorial Weekend? I understand maybe for President's Day or Memorial or 4th of July or Veterans Day, but seemed like there's no flag ever flown on them days out there on that pole. And I'm just kind of curious as why not, since the city owns the cemetery.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. The flags that have been put up at Greenwood are put up by others. They are not put up by staff.
Okay, I just sense that if we can get the people at the American Legion to put it up or what, but I just seem like for a holiday as we celebrate and remembrance of people that have served and other family members that's went on, that why we don't have the flag up there at that cemetery. We get them at the grave sites, but not on the pole.
Right, right. And the ones at Greenwood, they put up that morning, and then they take them down before dark because we don't have lights for any of them. So
Right.
it's all done by volunteers at Greenwood.
But because I decorate a lot of graves, see like many different cemeteries, there's always a flag at the cemetery. And when I get back home and about noon on Memorial Weekend, there's still no flag on that pole at noon.
At Restlawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll
And
look at that.
There's actually a flagpole there?
Yeah, there's a flagpole there. When they first opened it up, they flew a flag there.
Okay.
But the past 2 years, I haven't.
Well, when they first opened it, it was a private cemetery.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
We,
it probably got mixed up somehow.
I don't know.
Suzanne,
We'll
you
look
check
at
on
it.
that?
We'll check on it.
Okay, well, that's all I need to know, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip.
you.
Thank you.
Next up is Curtis. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher your last name, so.
Can't say it or can't read it. Curtis Stiggins, 615 Southeast 4th. Just got a couple remarks here. We had the car show this last weekend, and the show came off really good. I was impressed. And we always get a good turnout for the show and everything. But before the show, a couple weeks before, a week or so, the chief made a comment about no burnouts, no hot rodding, he was going to come out in full force on all the cruisers, and he did. I'm guessing there was 10 or 12 police cruisers that was in the cruise with officers, and I don't know how many was on the street. I'm thinking that was excessive force. I'm thinking that's way too much waste of company, of city money, and I didn't see anybody get a ticket, and I heard the sheriff say there wasn't any citations made. But one reason there was no hot rodding because there was too many cars on Main Street. For a cruise, we need to get with the people that do the cruise and the city and the law enforcement and close down Main Street. I mean, these covers were bumper to bumper. I was at Broadway and Main for an hour and a half, and they were just bumper to bumper, and that's a good way to have an accident. If one person stops, they get rear-ended. And so there was a lot of there, and at Broadway, as soon as the cars stopped, the cars went east and west. It doesn't matter if it was a red light, green light, whatever. We had people running red lights like crazy, and I'm going, where's our officers? I mean, we got 10 of them cruising Maine, but nobody's here. So I was upset over that. So maybe we need to get them out, and like I said, we close the streets. If we're closing the street for the car show, I know it's a state highway. Why don't we get a permit to close it Friday night for a couple hours? And if you don't have a permit to be in the car show, then you don't get on Main Street. Just the people with the cars get to cruise, or bikes, whatever. It's got to have a cruise sticker. And so I would like to see that done. I guess I've seen the worst part of this is Arc City down here used to have a fantastic car show. And about 15 years ago, this is how they started doing it. They got a new city commission, new police chief, and each year it was a new rule. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. Well, over about 10 years, they eliminated that car show, and nobody kept showing up. I mean, people came from Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, and it just kept getting littler and littler because of the harassment of the city and everything. And before the pandemic, I was down there, and there might have been 100 cars and no vendors. Since the pandemic, the dragway has taken over the car show, but you're 8 miles outside of town. So the people aren't spending money in Arc City, you know, and the car show brings a lot of money to town. People come. One guy I talked to, a car I hadn't seen before, he drove 2 hours to be here on Saturday morning. So if we can bring people in, we can bring money. But if we want to start harassing these people for bringing their hot rods to town and limiting what they can do and stuff like that, and like I said, Packet, Maine, I don't have one anymore, but you know, I don't want my hot rod ran into by somebody's SUV that's not even in the show. So I would like to have somebody look at it and see what we can do about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Well, let's go around the horn. Commissioner Valentine, would you like to start us?
Last night, my husband and I attended the senior center, the Newton Area Senior Center. I'm glad that they have gone back to that name, finally. And they have their monthly potluck, and my understanding is that there were 57 people there, not counting the staff. Excellent turnout, and they did say that I think they have sent a thank you note to the commission for the $5,000 that they were able to receive from the city. So I was glad to hear about that. I ran into one of them at the grocery store, and they said that they had received the $5,000. I'm very thankful for that. They are trying very hard to do differently, and I think it is showing. So I was excited about that and wanted to share that with the commission, that they did receive the $5,000 and they're thankful, and I think a thank you note is coming. So, and then just thank you to staff and all. And then I want to say thank you to all of you who came out for this purpose. You had a purpose and intent, and I thank you for coming. Your fortitude and your persistence, I just want to say thank you to you.
Commissioners, I put at your seat a project list of everything that we have going on and kind of the status, just so you kind of could see the number of projects that we are running. Most of these, I think all but one of these, are actual infrastructure improvement projects. One is a plat that is running through the process, and it requires a lot of reviews, and assuming if they move forward as they have suggested, that will turn into at least three improvement projects for water, sewer, and streets. If you have questions on that, just let me know later.
No, sir. Thank you.
No, sir.
Yeah, I'll give a different perspective of the Friday night cruise night. I appreciate everything you had to say, but my kids and I went out in our new to us old car and cruised, and it was great father-son time for a while, cruising up and down Main Street. I would agree there was a lot of cars. I thought it was wonderful, though. I thought the police did a very good job of monitoring and stopping and putting to bed anything before it became an issue, and we felt very safe the whole time we were cruising up and down Main Street. My only complaint was that we didn't have any speakers in the car, so we had to use a portable speaker, and it died about 5 minutes from our house. So other than that, we had a great time. I thought it was good. It was fun to see so many people lining the sidewalks and just being out for a good, nice weather evening here in Newton. So
I too enjoy the car show every year. I'm a car freak, so it's in my blood. I've spent many an hour at car shows and my youth on Douglas and Wichita and everything on Saturday night. So I've seen both sides of it, the good and the bad. And everything. So I think we're right hovering in the middle. Yes, we need to be very careful to make sure we don't rule ourselves out of something good that's good for the community. And what's good for the community is 3 charities each received over $6,000 from the proceeds of that car show. So that's really awesome. So that's it, Mayor.
Yeah. Well, I have to echo the car show. I had a lot of fun. Over 400 cars there. Wow. I mean, that's a record. And Friday night, and I'll admit, me and my truck was part of that for one up and down on Main Street. But then I stopped and got my strawberry shake. But it was fun to see all the people in the community. It was a good time. And
Great weather.
and yeah, Saturday morning, and it was nice and warm, and the food trucks, and I'm telling you, it just doesn't get much better than that for the city of Newton. So let's see, what do we say here? Newton proud, right?
Yep.
We are adjourned.